there wasn't community. And sometimes I guess that's what didn't really work about busing in some ways, is the whole community aspect, because it does take a community. You know, the answer is the communities to be more integrated and not redline or price people out and that kind of a thing. Because there's something to be said about being able to walk down the street and say, you know, Rose so-and-so, I see you, I'm going to call your parents. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Or feel like that older cousin or that older, you know, sister of so-and-so, maybe so-and-so is not nice to you, but the older sister comes over to you and say, look, my sister's a jerk. You know, that would happen in a community setting that would not happen in a school setting.
Yeah.
Are you going back to school tomorrow?
No way.
People, as a community, it's tearing them apart.
Nothing else. Let us go to our neighborhoods where our kids are safe. We want our kids safe.
They were throwing eggs at the window and try to hit people with them.
While we was in school, there was throwing glass at black people and little kids.
I think it's gonna be all right if everybody come and stop being scared, because shoot, I don't think there's nothing to be scared of.
So there was a high school in your neighborhood. Did you ever visit to get a sense of what was happening in the white school to the black kids?
Yes. Oh, yes. And I left out a part of the story. First, let me say, in my junior year, I got a chance to go to Brighton High. They said, you can transfer back if you want, because I had told, you know, I was pretty damaged at that point, just in my own, through my own failings as much as society's, honestly. And I went to Brighton High for one semester. And Brighton is very diverse. We were already diverse. That's probably why they put us with Roxbury in the first place, because we're very, very diverse. I couldn't do any of the work. So I transferred back because I know no one would expect anything from me.
Okay.
And no one would know me. So I transferred back and I just became a ghost.
Okay. So there was a difference in education level between Roxbury and Brighton. Like, could you tell me a little bit about that? How different was it and what made it different?
I don't know, it seemed to be more order in the classroom. There was more there was more rules. There was more, the structure was there. It just felt like more like normal school. It was still noisier than what I would ever, you could hear a pin drop in Catholic school, trust me. You didn't dare do anything wrong there. I was there for just so short of a time, and I didn't fit in there either, because I didn't know anybody anymore.
Yeah.
And then faced with not being able to do any of the work, I just felt even more depressed and just gave in and caved in and just said, well, it was a way out for me. I can just hide back in that school and no one will expect anything from me or see me.
Okay. Now tell me about.
I want to tell you about one time some of the girls in my neighborhood had a cousin from Charlestown, and they said, let's go to Charlestown High for the day.
Yeah.
And Charlestown High was a white school that was in the news, like South Boston High, throwing rocks at buses and fighting people, blacks and whites fighting and all that. And I don't really remember much from that day. It just seemed like a stupid field trip. I don't know what the big deal was. I don't know why we went there and did that, but obviously it just seems stupid to me now because I don't know. We weren't supposed to be there. It's my Catholicness. I just felt like awkward. Like, what's happening? Are we going to get in trouble? Are you going to get in trouble? We're away from home. Are we going to get home in time for supper? I don't know. I was preoccupied with that, but it just seemed like a non-starter. It didn't. There was no violence happening or nothing. It was like a stupid prank. Yeah. Anyway.
So now tell me about the physical sort of like condition of the school.
It's gorgeous. State of the art, everything you'd want to have, and I go insane when like I'm at UMass. We have all these beautiful buildings now, one at a time. I feel like I was steeped in this whole like era of politicians coming out to glad hand and cut ribbons and these beautiful things. But where's the real resources? Where's the real, where's the foundation that's going to really get us to that next marker? That's going to be about real change instead of just giving us these new shiny places that are just empty. It's the resources to me are more important than the actual physical structure personally. Yeah. So sometimes like at UMass we get these new buildings, but do we have enough advisors? Do we have enough what's our curriculum like? How are we meeting people where they are in their academic progress? Because also I tried to go to college, but I was ill prepared for that.
Yeah. So tell me about that. So after you spent 4 years in a majority Black school, you tried to transition to college. What was that experience like?
It was awful, but a lot of that was I didn't have good study habits, obviously, or any study habits. And I felt very much a strain from being a commuter student, so I can feel like I really relate to the students at UMass Boston. And especially as an art student, I was going to Mass Art, and I lived in a house with 8 other people in like 3 tiny rooms, and to have to do like an art project on the kitchen table, it's time for supper, or what are you doing up so late, or it just felt like I had to work, or I was able to work, I should say, between work and trying to manage art projects and be remote and travel back and forth to campus. It was horrible, and I only lasted a year and a half. Okay. I couldn't cut it. And actually the last class that I went to was an English class where I felt, again, largely just invisible. That kind of carried over to feel invisible. I was sitting in English class, and the teacher, we had to take English as part of a requirement. It was like kind of the only academic class besides art history that we had to take in art school. This English teacher started saying, I just read a paper from a student who I didn't even know existed in this class, and it blew me away. And he started reading my paper, and my paper was about Malcolm X. Oh God. Yeah. And how much I related to him, even though I wasn't Black. And he came up to me after class, and he's like, "Oh, you really have you really are a good writer. I never heard your voice this whole time. What's going on?" And I'm like, "I don't belong. I don't even belong here. I thought finally I belonged." And in my adult life, I still don't feel like I quote unquote belong, but I realize that belonging is a decision you make, and
Yeah.
a choice to belong.
So as an adult, have you tried to find any of your classmates that you went to high school with? Okay.
No, I've often thought about one girl who was kind of a ringleader,
Mm.
and I don't know if this story is true, but I found, or I thought I overheard, that her family was wealthy, that they
Mm.
owned Black businesses. They had a thriving business, and she had money, and she would wear fur coats and this and that, and she was so mean. And I remember being resentful, like, why aren't you setting an example, or why aren't you helping
Mm.
people, or why are you using this moment in time to be such a shit? You have way more material things than I could ever dream possible.
Mm.
So that was kind of upsetting.
Yeah.
And then I was also upset by, I would get upset by girls who would want to get pregnant and have a family, and just to be able to, just as a way of life. Like, that's a prison. That's a prison that's going to trap you. This is not going to be good. This is not going to go. There was like a spate of girls of all colors actually getting pregnant in high school. And that was like, oh my God, no one is teaching anyone anything in these schools.
Yeah.
Why is that a choice?
Mm.
I can party. I can just move across the complex and mom will watch the kids. And I'd be like, no, that's a trap. That's a trap. That's not what it sounds like. Someone's going to, help you see a better way out. And I could relate. I would be like, my God, I can see how that would be such a horrible trap.
Mm. Yeah.
But I don't know. There wasn't community. And sometimes I guess that's what didn't really work about busing in some ways,
Mm.
is the whole community aspect, because it does take a community.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is the communities to be more integrated and not redline or price people out and that kind of a thing. Because there's something to be said about being able to walk down the street and say, Rose so-and-so, I see you. I'm going to call your parents. That's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or feel like that older cousin or that older, sister of so-and-so, maybe so-and-so is not nice to you, but the older sister comes over to you and say, look, my sister's a jerk.
Mm.
That would happen in a community setting that
Yeah.
would not happen in a school setting.
Yeah.
But no, the only person I ever thought to seek out was Maria.
Mm. Okay. So, as an adult, how have you made sense of like the busing era in Boston? Do you think it was successful? Do you think it failed?
It failed.
Tell me how that impacted you, sort of like your impression of the busing era as an adult.
Yeah, it was a good idea. I feel like it needed to happen.
Mm.
It was worth trying.
Mm-hmm.
I've frequently thought to myself, okay, so the change has to be more holistic.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be more organic somehow. And I think that's where sometimes church communities can be really powerful,
Mm-hmm.
because you might get, like, say you all go to the same school, but maybe just a portion of you are in a certain church group, then you might step over the line and say, all right, look, you're not going to do this. You're not going to pull that crap, or you're not going to, that there's some kind of, internal sort of family atmosphere.
Mm.
But like I said, it was worth happening. I've often thought to myself, I wonder if it would be helpful if everyone went to boarding school. Like just everyone goes, regardless. It's not punitive. It's not anything. I mean, how can anyone look down on that? Because rich people go to boarding school. Why can't we all go to boarding school?
Yeah.
And not to have a colonized education or a whitewashed, a revival of the Indian boarding schools. I'm not looking for that.
Yeah.
But something that's more elevated.
Mm.
Could that be a thing? Because I think what kids struggle with, and I have a son myself, is peer pressure and how that plays out, and what's said, code switching, what's said in front of people, what's said behind people's back, what do parents know, what do parents not know.
Yeah.
If they're we're all away at like Hogwarts.
I wish.
I know, like if I feel like we have enough money.
Yeah.
We have enough money in this country to do something like that, and to have a true academy that has a decolonized curriculum where people can just finally learn what's right, and not learn the wrong version of Thanksgiving and the fabricated story, or just be allowed to be Black only on Martin Luther King Day and then switch back to the bullshit every other damn day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I still think that could work, but people say that's another flawed social experiment, but I think it could work.
So you do think that the Boston era was not successful in like desegregating schools or spreading around resources to schools? So how has like the Boston era affected the state of like public schools in Boston today?
I think what they were trying to do was good. They were trying to make magnet schools. They cared about what you might be doing after school. Like my school, where it was arts centered, and right now it's become a VOTEC. It wasn't back then, more so. But to realize that a way out of poverty is opportunity and training. So that, I think, was a good thing. But again, I give them an A for effort, but I just cringe every time there's like a grand opening in a traditionally Black neighborhood, or even at UMASS Boston, and a big ribbon cutting where all the big politicians come out to take a bow, and it's like, no, it's not about you. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And I think our university is on track to try to address some of these things, and at least I believe the elevator speech. I think we are trying to meet people where they are. We're trying to address the opportunity gap and the educational gap, and that unfortunately people, when you grow up in poverty, you are dealing with more things that affect your learning. Having a quiet space to study, having technology, and equity, it has to bear out there before we can see it on the other side, access. So hopefully, I still think we should have a Hogwarts.
If you could do it over again, would you have chosen to go to a majority Black school?
I can't say no, because it made me who I am. And then as an adult, right? Do we take away our challenges? I mean, I'm not religious in the least, and I don't even go to church anymore. My son yells at me about it, but I almost feel like God's laughing at me going, yep, I put you right where I need you to be. So there's no coincidences. And I feel that it's given me such a sense of urgency. And how lucky would anybody be to just say, oh, that only lasted for 4 years, and now I can just blend. Now I don't have to not be invisible. Now I don't have to worry about white spaces or Black spaces. That's true privilege.
Yeah.
I just feel such a urgency of, like, even more than the pandemic, like the survival of the human race.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't want to. It was like saying to Jesus, "Do you want to go hang up on that cross?" But that's a horrible blasphemy. But It was terrible, but without that terrible experience, it wouldn't have given me a heart to hear.
Mm. Yeah.
And it wouldn't have, I never would have fully realized, even at that young age, so I don't cut any young people slack, to realize when the myth got stripped away, when I realized they're not going home to a life that's okay.
Mm.
Their father still hasn't worked since 1960 something.
Mm.
Where's his opportunity?
Mm.
He can't move. They can't move out of that neighborhood
Yeah.
because they can't find a better way. There's nothing. I mean, when that got stripped from me, and laid bare with the redlining and just everything that comes with it,
Yeah.
it's pretty terrible and feels kind of overwhelming. And I'm not even a person of color, so
Yeah.
I feel sad and hopeful. And I know as I read and believe that racism is it's a white problem. It's invented solely on the white imagination. Somebody made this up. Who makes that up? Who looks at a thing and says, this is what that is? Who does that? I can't, it blows my mind as an artist because I imagine things.
Yeah.
This is made from a white imagination. Anyway, maybe Meghan Markle's onto something here. Maybe she's going to spearhead something international.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know.
I don't know. We started from over that way, right? A lot of our trouble came over from that way. So maybe there's a full circle moment happening here.
Yeah.
And as I go through Boston and I go through all the places I've been and all the times I've been there and get to see it through an entirely new lens, through a new experience, it's so strange. It's kind of the blessing of being in one area for a very long time.
Yeah.